Belarus says the venue for peace talks between Ukraine and Russia is ready, as the meeting is expected to be underway later today. Foreign Affairs Minister Vivian Balakrishnan announces sanctions against Russia with specific measures to be detailed shortly. And kicking off the budget debate, leader of the opposition says the Workers' Party disagrees with the GST hike. I'm Olivia Quay. You're watching The Big Story. It's 5:30 p.m. in Singapore, 11:30 a.m. in Ukraine. A look at its capital, Kiev, earlier in the morning, just past 8 a.m. on the fifth day of the invasion, when a weekend-long curfew was lifted, allowing residents to leave the underground shelters they have been staying in. Grocery stores are also allowed to open and public transport can run again. Kiev officials, however, have warned the war is far from over as street fighting continues in almost every district of the city. The curfew will kick in again at 10 p.m. tonight, Ukraine time, until 7 a.m. tomorrow. Meanwhile, posting this picture on social media, Belarus says it's prepared a venue to host peace talks between Ukraine and Russia, scheduled to happen today. Ukraine has agreed to send diplomats to a location near its border with Belarus, despite reports that the country's dictator is poised to send troops to join the invasion. Singapore has joined other countries slapping sanctions on Russia. Foreign Affairs Minister Vivian Balakrishnan tells Parliament that Singapore will impose export controls on items that can be used directly as weapons in Ukraine to inflict harm or to subjugate the Ukrainians. He says Singapore will also block certain Russian banks and financial transactions connected to Russia. Specific measures are being worked out and will be announced shortly. We have more on Dr. Balakrishnan's speech later in the show. Separately, European Union foreign ministers agreed to send 450 million euros in military aid to Ukraine for lethal weapons and another 50 million euros for non-lethal purposes. Meanwhile, Canada says it would ship non-lethal protective military equipment like helmets to Ukraine's army, but rules out sending troops in. Canada has a large Ukrainian diaspora numbering more than 1.3 million. Dr. Frederick Kliem, a research fellow at NTU S Rajaratnam School of International Studies, joins me now. Good afternoon, Dr. Kliem. So, aside from the weaponry that the European Union says it will send to Ukraine, it wants Ukraine as a member. So, what added protection would EU membership give the country?
Hi, Olivia. Thank you for having me. Look, things are moving so fast, it's very difficult to even keep up. But when von der Leyen announced this, I was as surprised, I think, as everybody else when I heard this. So it seems to me to be more a rhetorical weapon to pressure Russia rather than a real possibility, I must say. So in general, what you're insinuating is correct. EU membership does come with a security and defense cooperation protection, if you like, but there is a clear procedure towards membership, right? Indeed, the EU is perfect process, the epitome of the rule of law, if you like, right? So unlike ASEAN, the EU has clear membership criteria, which includes democracy, rule of law, and important here, peaceful and stable relations among all minorities. Secondly, legal fiscal trade reform must take place and all member states must agree, the European Parliament also. So the main point is accession negotiations are a very, very long process. And we have some underway currently with other countries that have taken as long as 10, 15 years, right? So all in all, I think what is possible is that the EU does begin accession procedure with Ukraine, which can easily take 15 years or even longer. But I think at this stage, it is more a rhetorical weapon than a real possibility. But perhaps, if I may, just one quick add-on to this is that I think perhaps this may be something that can work towards an eventual agreement to which Russia can also agree. I think it was a mistake to expand NATO eastwards. What we should have done instead is keep NATO's door closed, but agree that the former Soviet republics can join the European Union. I think this would have been a compromise perhaps the Russians can agree to as well.
Right. Well, Dr. Kliem, another major talking point from the weekend is that Russian President Vladimir Putin has put Russia's nuclear forces on special alert. Knowing the possible devastation as well as the repercussions on his own country, what factors would still drive Mr. Putin to launch a nuclear attack?
I think I have long stopped to apply rational actor logic to Mr. Putin. So I think here it is worth pointing out that the Western media is partly incorrect in their reporting at the moment, in seeing this purely as a sort of panic reaction of a cornered animal whose fight is not going so well. Putin has been fairly clear from day one of that invasion that the nuclear option is on the table if NATO intervenes with boots on the ground. So in more general terms, I would say this once again underlines the fallacy that there is such a thing as nuclear stability, right? Please remember, we even feared at some point Trump may unwittingly put the nuclear option on the table against China. So this is not the same. Trump is constrained by checks and balances while Putin is unhinged. But the main point remains, nuclear weapons do not make the world a safer place. That's a fallacy. So I hope that this is nothing more than crazy rhetoric, a threat of a crazy dictator. But it is very worrisome that people like Vladimir Putin have, in theory, the option of pressing a devastating red button.
Dr. Kliem, thank you very much for sharing your perspectives with us. That was Dr. Frederick Kliem from the S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies. Well, moving on, Singapore Airlines has indefinitely suspended all flights between Changi Airport and Moscow with immediate effect, citing operational reasons. This affects flight numbers SQ362 and 361. All affected customers will be offered a full refund for the unused portion of their ticket. And for a deeper discussion on the Russian invasion of Ukraine and what it means for Asia, we've lined up a special roundtable featuring veteran Singapore diplomat Kishore Mahbubani. Join him and our very own Jonathan Isle, Ravi Valoor and foreign editor Bhagyashri Gareka tomorrow, March the 1st. It will be available on the Straits Times' YouTube channel from 11 a.m. Singapore's Foreign Affairs Ministry has taken a strong stance against Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Speaking in Parliament today, Foreign Affairs Minister Vivian Balakrishnan stresses that while Singapore continues to value good relations with Russia, it cannot accept such violations of sovereignty.
Whilst Ukraine is far away from us, we are following the crisis with grave concern. Its economic effects can already be felt here, for example, in rising electricity and petrol prices. But these are not the principal reason the situation in Ukraine is important to us. The events in Ukraine go to the heart of the fundamental norms of international law and the UN Charter that prohibit the use of force and acts of aggression against another sovereign state. Russia's invasion of Ukraine is a clear and gross violation of the international norms and a completely unacceptable precedent. This is an existential issue for us. Ukraine is much smaller than Russia, but it is much bigger than Singapore. A world order based on might is right, or where the strong do what they can and the weak suffer what they must. Such a world order would be profoundly inimical to the security and survival of small states. We cannot accept one country attacking another without justification, arguing that its independence was the result of, quote, historical errors and crazy decisions, unquote. Such a rationale would go against the internationally recognized legitimacy and the territorial integrity of many countries, including Singapore.
Dr. Balakrishnan addressed the issue of Singaporeans in Ukraine as well. Their safety is of priority concern, with the ministry exploring options for them to leave the country if the situation allows.
Following our first travel advisory, 7 Singaporeans left Ukraine by commercial options before the conflict erupted. Since the launch of the Russian invasion, another 3 Singaporeans have left Ukraine and made their way across the border into Poland. We are still in touch with 8 Singaporeans currently in Ukraine who are spread out across several cities. And we're aware of at least one other person whom we're still trying to contact. Singaporean safety remains our priority concern. And MFA has been in contact with them, and we will assist them wherever and however possible. We are also exploring options for them to leave the country if the situation permits.
From today to Wednesday, MPs will debate the 2022 budget statement, which Finance Minister Lawrence Wong delivered on February 18th. Kicking off the proceedings, Leader of the Opposition, Pritam Singh, raised some issues the Workers' Party had with the budget, specifically objecting to the upcoming GST hike.
However, there are aspects of the budget that are of concern to us. We disagree with the decision to raise the goods and services tax, especially at this time. First, the GST increase. While the GST hike was anticipated, it comes at a difficult time for our people. Inflation is on the upswing and prices are high. Supply chain disruptions are having an outsized impact on people's purses. There's real concern on the ground that the announcement to raise the GST will lead to price rises across the board. The Workers' Party's position is that the government need not raise the GST. There are other options for raising revenue. The Workers' Party notes the broad thrust of the budget and supports the call for greater fairness, sustainability, and a more inclusive society, a philosophy that comes with much promise for the future. However, the Workers' Party will object to the budget as we disagree with the decision to raise the GST.
And Senior Minister of State for Transport, Chee Hong Tat, tells Parliament that COVID-19 positive bus drivers make up less than 5% of the total public bus driver population amid a surge in COVID-19 cases in the wider community. While a small proportion, this has nonetheless resulted in commuters having to wait up to 3 more minutes for about 90 bus services.
LTA and the bus operators are watching the situation closely. If we face a large increase in the number of infected BCs, the contingency plans will be activated to ensure that essential bus services continue to operate. That is the key. And this includes lengthening of bus service headways, starting with low-demand bus services. And some of these plans have already been implemented, with about 90 bus services experiencing increased waiting times of not more than 3 minutes. Where possible, LTA and the bus operators will also deploy more double-deck buses for services with higher loading.
In other news, the Court of Appeal has ruled that Section 377A of the Penal Code, which criminalizes sex between men, stays on the books but cannot be used to prosecute men for having gay sex. It follows constitutional challenges to the law brought by 3 men, retired GP and LGBT rights activist Dr. Roy Tan Seng Kee, DJ Johnson Ong Ming, and Brian Chung, former executive director of LGBT non-profit Ugachaga. Given its ruling, the court says the trio cannot be said to face any real and credible threat of prosecution under this provision at this time, and that their constitutional rights haven't been violated. Separately, from tomorrow, the courts will be able to deal with molesters more severely, with increased penalties for sex crimes kicking in, including an increase in the maximum jail time for molesters to 3 years from the current 2. The maximum penalty for other sexual offences will also be raised to be on par with existing maximum sentences for offences involving minors. AXA Singapore will be exiting the motor and commercial insurance business after being acquired by an indirectly owned subsidiary of HSBC earlier this month. According to sources, its general insurance arm will go into runoff prior to its operations being folded into HSBC's existing HSBC Life Singapore business. Responding to queries from the Straits Times, an HSBC spokesman confirmed that it will stop offering AXA Singapore's motor and commercial lines insurance product classes by the middle of the year. And in entertainment, Squid Game, one of Netflix's most popular series of all time, has made award show history, becoming the first non-English language series and first Korean title to win. Lee Jong-jae and Jung Ho-yeon winning male actor and female actor in a drama series, respectively. Despite those victories, Succession beat Squid Game for best ensemble in a drama series. Well, those are our top stories for today. Visit straitstimes.com for more news and our YouTube channel for more videos. Subscribe by hitting the red button below. I'm Olivia Quay. Thanks for watching The Big Story, and I'll see you tomorrow.